You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market updates and trading strategies. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com and co-hosts Mike Tosaw from KnowYourOptionsInc.com and Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. The Option Block is brought to you by Options Express. Don't spend time worrying about your broker. At Options Express, security, stability, and account protection are the most important responsibilities to our customers. Secure account access, enhanced financial protection, entrusted with over $7 billion in customer assets, established financial stability. Options Express lets you trade with confidence. Stocks, options, and futures, all in one account. Trade with a specialist. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio to open your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Option Block. This is, of course, your bi-weekly source for all things options related. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the ever-expanding, ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. Once again, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, head on over to your app store. That, of course, can be the Google Play App Store, the iTunes App Store, even the Amazon Kindle Fire App Store, and check out our new Options Insider Radio Network mobile app. It'll let you instantly stream all 300-plus episodes of the Option Block, as well as all of your other favorite programs on the network. You can download them for offline listening when you're on the train or on the plane, wherever you like to listen to your finer podcast programs. And, of course, you can use that contact suite to get in touch with us here on the show. Ask us your questions, give us your comments, all that fun stuff. Again, the Options Insider Radio Network mobile app. Check it out in your app store of choice. All right, and joining me on the old all-star panel today, starting off with the man holding down the OX hot seat, he is none other than the man known as the Viceroy, Mr. Alex Jacobson from Options Express by Charles Schwab. Alex, welcome back to the program, sir.
Mark, it's good to be here on this lovely day in Chicago.
Yes, I believe we're actually above 50 today, which is probably a record for the last 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, we saw one of our neighbors was out slaughtering a calf, I think, to the weather gods. So, yeah, stuff is melting, and it's actually nice in Chicago today.
Whatever he's doing, tell him to keep it up, and I'll chip in whatever he needs, because this is finally livable again. All right, and speaking of places that aren't livable, let's now jump to Maine, where it's not hot skate weather anymore, and Andrew is quite sad, because we are joined right now by none other than the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Giovinazzi. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Andrew, welcome back to the show, sir.
It's always great to be back here. Always great. But when you have 5 vowels in your name, they're bound to be butchered by somebody. Even highly qualified, voice guys.
That's what you get for having such a mouthful of a last name. I went for the short Italian name, and it's worked much better for me, I should say.
It was probably like Longostino or something like that. They had a bunch more vowels connected to the back of that, and you shortened it up when you became Americanized.
They said, screw this, we're cutting it in half. All right, and last but certainly not least, we're also joined by Uncle Mike Tosaw from RCM Asset Management. Uncle Mike, welcome to the show, sir.
I have to say thank you, and this is probably the first time in the history of my life that my last name's not the one that got butchered. Kudos to your voice guy on my behalf.
Yours is probably the easiest of the bunch, I would have to think, at this point. But we'll see. I'll have to ask him and get his feedback. But with the gang all here and the panel all assembled, it's time to roll right on into our first segment, the trading block.
The trading block.
All right, everybody, those bells mean that it is time once again for the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what's trading, what's moving the old markets, and what's lighting up the old tape from an options perspective. And from a broad index perspective, broad market perspective, it wasn't a whole heck of a lot. Lighting up the old tape, the S&P closing almost exactly unched on the day, the Qs and the Dow not really doing a whole heck of a lot more. Most of them essentially unched on the day as well. A little bit of vol breathing back into the marketplace, but not a whole heck of a lot. There either, as we like to say here on the show, bit of a resounding meh here on the show, but that's not been the case in the realm of the Rock Lobster. No, indeed, he is the proud owner of a shiny new Series 65. So, sir, congratulations to you, Mr. Rock Lobster.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled you remembered me. Thrilled as always. You know what? I studied all weekend for it. I put in some time. Although anybody just study the last 3 chapters, and that probably gets you about 80% of the test. It had absolutely nothing to do with options, by the way. There was one option question, which actually confused me. There was a stop loss question that confused me. But this is my favorite question. All right, see if you guys get this right. Okay. The risk associated with the CMO, which is a collateralized mortgage obligation, okay? And they go to list, okay, there's market risk, there's credit risk, there's all these kind of risks. And you know what the answer basically is there's no credit risk because they're triple and double A rated by Standard & Poor's. So I actually got that wrong. Because I'm like, well, didn't the financial crisis, these things just blow everybody to pieces?
I would think 2008, 2009 would put the lie to a lot of that CMOs have no credit risk.
You must have got the
dollars later.
Wow. Yeah, I would have first guessed credit risk on that. That would have been my first choice. And I would have underlined it and circled it.
In the book, no, there is no risk to a CMO because they are AAA and AA rated. I felt totally over.
And this is what people are using to certify our financial leaders and our financial representatives out there. This kind of stuff. That's a little bit disturbing, I think, to say the least.
Well, I think the way they word the questions, you have to have some sort of ability to dissect very confusing questions with a lot of double negatives and stuff. But whatever. I passed it. I've taken 5 series tests before. I'll pass them. So here's number 6.
And I think a lot of people have this weird misperception that these tests, at least in the public, that these tests are somehow designed to test your trading acumen and savvy and knowledge of the markets, when that is not at all the case. It's really designed to test your knowledge of compliance and make sure you don't blow yourself or anybody else out of the water. I remember when I first took the SIBO exam, I remember going into it as a young guy out of college thinking, oh, this is going to be some big options exam. I better study up on vol, skew, and all these things. And there was none of that. There's, essentially was a bunch of questions about how not to cause some sort of regulatory or legal hassle for myself or my firm or for the exchange, pretty much. And that was pretty much all of it. And all these other exams fall into similar categories. Alex, I know you've taken pretty much every exam under the sun. Is that pretty much your take as well?
Yeah, and I've written some of the exams. It's a controversy. They're there to test citizenship, not trading ability. And at SIBO many, many years ago, we proposed a trading ability exam when they went from what was then the old new member test, which they got sanctioned for because the procedure was put the prospective members in a room, give them the answers, and then give them the test, to the new member test, which we took over at the Institute. And one of the proposals was, let's add a day to the test and give them an introduction to trading. And the legacy licensed people said, no, you're just going to teach them citizenship. We didn't have the benefit of being taught to trade. And that's the line the industry has gone down. You just test citizenship.
It's an unfortunate development. Maybe we could be all spared some of these disasters we've seen of late if people who took these tests actually knew what it was that they were actually supposedly being tested for. But that's a conversation for another day. We could fill many shows with that. Senior Rock Lobster, what else caught your eye in today's activity, sir?
Well, a stock was stud. Actually, it is a studly stock. Many are calling it the new Tesla, plug power, blowing all the shorts totally out of the water as it's up like 400% or something this year.
I have to say, I was at an event this weekend, and the guy sitting next to me was the brand spanking new owner of a Tesla Model S, and he spent the entire evening showing me off all of the features, the app. He could see exactly where his car was, how much it was charging. He could open the roof, the little dongle that came with it to open the trunk and everything. And he was very close to selling me on that Model S by the end of the evening. I will say that.
I don't think I've seen a Model S in Maine, but the plug definitely interesting from a kind of a turnaround story view. Pretty much, yeah. Full disclosure, I'm long at it. I've been long for a little bit, written about it a little bit, but it's just interesting that a stock is catching, I think, on a boring day, which is kind of what this was. People are looking for something to do, and I guess they found it. So we can cover it in the op block, though. But I think for me, that was kind of the biggest thing. I spent all morning, trying to learn that a CMO is not a credit is not a credit risk. It still cracks me up.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But yeah, this guy should cut a check over to Elon Musk because they're getting some of the runoff of the PR and celebrity of Tesla onto them, carrying them up. Like you said, yeah, you're 25% today. So of course you're still talking a $10 stock, but still not a bad move if you're long and you're happy.
It was like $2 in November when we first started writing it up in unusual activity. So
that's when you said, I believe, to overwrite 1/5 ratios. That's what you said?
As a way to get rich.
1/7, you might have said. I know you were pretty aggressive. I tried to walk you back, but you would have none of it.
I know. Please. The degenerate premium buyer now becomes a seller at a $1 stock.
I love it. All right, Senior Tosaw, what was taking up the BBI today?
Well, today was kind of an interesting day in that we had sellers coming into the market early, and towards the end of the day, they ended up buying. So I thought of Grigas a lot today, being a great day for being a day trader, but around about 9:30, 10 o'clock, was able to sell some put spreads at a lower level that I was hoping to get a little bit of a pullback to do so, and it ended up working out so far. So far, so good. Just watching the market as a whole, gold was pretty much didn't really have a lot of movement today, but the market itself, it was definitely exciting, at least in from the morning till the afternoon for me anyway. I felt like such the day trader.
Isn't it nice when the market makes a nice little pullback just to accommodate you? You feel special.
I wrote a letter to the people that run the Series 65 exam, and they said they'd do that just for me.
Yes, they have that much power over there.
They do.
65 land. I know you talked on a recent show, Mike, about that strategic night portfolio. Anything going on with that? Do you have a lot to do with that? And are you writing and managing the options component of that, or is that purely equity-based?
That one is purely equity-based. What we're working to do is hopefully within the next month or so, we're looking to import the S&P hedge strategy into that. So in other words, right now, what we're doing, one of the strategies that I do run is we're long SPY. And in that strategy right now, we're long SPY. And let me bring up the exact positioning of it just to give you an idea of it. We're also long the June 174 put. And this is for every 100 shares. And then with that strategy, I've been selling put spreads against just with extra money against that to finance that 174 put. And that's something we've been doing for that concept. We've been doing either with SPY or with QQQ. We've been doing that for many, many years. What we're in the process of doing right now is for the equity-based strategic night fund, we're in the process of looking to incorporate that with that hedge on the S&P with the strategic night. And we're still going through meetings determining how much delta we need and how much theta, how much cash we need to set aside and that type of thing. But that will be a component of it probably within the next month or so. We're pretty close to getting there right now. But for the most part, that's more of an equity-based portfolio.
It seems like chocolate and peanut butter, two great tastes that taste great together. Get those rolling put spreads out there, sir.
Well,
Lickety-splits.
my son's allergic to peanut butter, so,
well.
we're kind of trying to be careful with that.
Chocolate and Nutello, then. How about that? Something
There we go.
Chocolate
I
and more
don't even
chocolate.
know what Nutello is, but screw it. My son's not old enough to trade options yet. We'll use peanut butter.
There we go.
It's chocolate goo Nutella.
Pretty
chocolate
much.
Goo.
Yeah, it's like more chocolate. It's chocolate with more chocolate.
Ooh, that's a good combo.
They put the word nut in there to try to convince you that there's some health component to it, but it's just chocolate spread.
Got it.
All right. Mr. Viceroy, what caught your eye over there at Casa OX today?
When I queried the desk, they, much like Andrew, said it was all alt energy today. It was plug, fuel cell, and Solar City. The other thing lighting up the tape was Netflix and Priceline today. Two stocks that really got beaten up today. I think at one time Priceline was down $20, or am I inverting Priceline and Netflix? Well, Priceline ended the day down 14, but I think it was down almost 25 at one point during the day. So it was the typical leveraged option plays, and that's what happens on a slow day. The futures desk today was extremely quiet. I mean, when I surveyed Mike Zaremski and his crew, and I said, is energy still popping? His comment was, man, the only thing that really popped today was coffee. Apparently, coffee is trading at a new high, but it was somewhat of a muted day overall.
And Andrew, we haven't had a chance to really discuss it too much on this program yet. We touched on it a bit on vol views. Of course, it falls squarely into the domain of that program, but it's only been listed for a couple of weeks. I'm not sure if you have any preliminary thoughts on it. Of course, I'm talking about the VXST. This is the short-term VIX. It's essentially being calculated from the SPX weeklies. We all know here, talking on this show for the last couple of years, weeklies, short-duration products are where the action is at. SIBO, of course, seeing that, saying, hey, we need a shorter-term VIX. We need the vol VIX isn't enough. We need to have a new product that is pure vol. So we'll come up with this VXST and try it out. The early trading sessions haven't probably been as heavy as a lot of people might have assumed, given the the run up to this product. But in general, what's your 2 cents on VXST so far? Not a lot of volume, but does it theoretically intrigue you at least and pose some potential for some more action down the road?
Oh yeah, it theoretically intrigues me for sure. What we haven't had is that real giant vol pop yet. That's going to make everybody, kind of fill up their britches with fear, and that product will jump once the listed futures are really starting to move around a little bit.
Fill up their britches with fear. That might be a new
I was trying to make it, suitable for radio.
I'm going to mute myself. I'm funny. I just have the image of that. It's horrible. But where was I? Oh, but we did have that pop last Monday on the Ukraine, and so it was listed then. So you think that would have injected some life into it?
Yeah. The problem is it only lasted a day. I mean, we had a little run up on Friday, and today they're closing in the 13 handle. So really, it does move. I think it's going to take a little while for people for traders, pros. It's really a professional product still to get used to how it trades. It still has the same. I think the biggest problem is when you trade VIX futures, and right now there's a lot of, I think a lot of VIX future premium because of this Ukraine thing. It's very bid. You still have this near-term future versus long-term future problem that if we have an explosion in implied vol, it's hard to spread the two futures because one of them will just blow sky high. I don't think anybody's doing the short time spread yet, hugely, that is. So I think that just the products have not really found their the product hasn't really found its sort of way quite yet. I mean, it's doing a little volume, but it will I think eventually work. But we're going to have to see, a little more sustained up and down movement and things like that. But look how long it took people to figure out what the VIX did. So, and a lot of people still don't know what the VIX does. So.
Isn't that the great buy and hold product everyone's going on about these days?
It is the great buy and hold product, like many volatility products.
Buy VIX and put it away. Set it and forget it, and you're done for the year, listeners.
Yep,
You heard
you're
it
all
here
finished.
first. All right, since all anybody can talk about today is plug, we might as well keep on rolling into the odd block so we can do it all official-like with some unusual activity.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, that funky tune means it's time once again for the Odd Block. I'm going to kick it off where you might think with plug, it was talk about odd, talk about unusual, talk about all those adjectives. They all apply here to what was going on in plug. As we said, this one closed today, $10.30, up about 25% on the day, just off to the races. This is the name that's been averaging about 18,000 contracts a day, just doing a whopping 381,000 contracts. This is just off the charts volume here. We tried to pick out some of it, but there's so much going on that it's really you're spitting into the wind at this point, because trying to find any sort of direction or nuance. A lot of obviously people using the options again to chase the deltas to the upside, because that's kind of what you do on a day like this when the stock's gapping 25%. But there was an interesting one, and we highlighted this on the site this morning. We saw 4,000, and I had to check this twice to make sure I was reading there correctly. 4,000 of the April 3 calls going up for $6.60. It traded as two blocks, lifting the offer. Again, there's open interest on this strike, only about 2,000 contracts. So this is opening paper. So it isn't someone like you might first assume, hey, scrambling to close an override or something like that. Of course, I think they may have done that a little earlier when they blew past the 3 strike. But it wasn't someone scrambling to close. It looks like someone scrambling to actually get long some deltas and choosing the 3 strike of all places to make their home. Mr. Andrew, what's your take on this guy saying, I got to get me some of those ape 3s?
What's amazing is he's like already up 50 cents on them. Actually, more. He's up $1.
This reminds me of the guy playing like Big 6 and Big 8 on the craps table, and he's winning. And he's making a silly strategy look good.
He's like, I'm just getting long. I think Alex would be like, just go buy the stock, blah, blah, whatever. I don't know. He just bought them. I mean, there's strikes. I mean, there's volume now all the way up to the 15s. Volatility went, extremely high into the 150-60 range. 60-day realized volatility, amazingly, is still higher. So is crazy cheap or crazy expensive as you think the options might be, I still think they're slightly cheap on a relative basis. I would never sell an option in this thing, call or put or anything. Have not done so since they would not give me any stock in the month of January and February, but I fixed them. But yeah, just somebody wants to get long. There's all kinds of public interest, and who knows where it goes from here. I have no clue. But we looked at it in November and we looked at it in January. Most of the paper was either, taking gains, which used to think, when it went from 2 to 3, everybody's like, yay, they're making tons of money. And now it went from $3 to $10. So crazy. All it is just, it's the new Tesla, at least for today.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what the exact driver of today's news, the exact driver of today's action is. And of course, with a name like this, there doesn't really have to be one.
I think I found it. It was on CNBC and mentioned in the same breath with Tesla, I think on Friday.
There you go. Week. Elon Musk shine rubbing off on them. Yeah, we've been watching this one on the site for a while. You can go back and search for plug on Options Insider, listeners, if you want to see all the things we wrote up. But yeah, we've been watching this one for a while, and it seemed like people were taking their gains on the 3 strike for a while there. And then now they missed the other 7.5 handles since then. So crazy one. Not much else you can really say about that except get out of the way. Wow. if you're short the upside. Hopefully you've rolled and this isn't you chasing the close on the 3 strike.
Nope. I think this was opening because there was a couple of, it was the same type of block. It's like 2000, 2000. I think somebody just wants to get long.
Hey, what better way to do that?
What's funny is Musk hates this technology. He thinks hydrogen fuel cells are crap, but doesn't seem to matter.
I'm trying to think of a scenario in my head where I would logically choose the threes first. Got to have those threes and not the stock or do something a little bit nearer term. And just, April threes, odd choice.
Yeah, I would think, I would want more gamma. I would go for more contracts over more deltas.
Yeah, I'd go 6 or somewhere in that range probably. Just at least if you want to go in the money, but still have some flexibility and not break the bank on just essentially buying deltas.
So, but hey,
what do we know, higher, Andrew?
I guess
we can't even figure out the questions on your 65. So what do we know?
I know those collateralized mortgage obligations. There's no credit risk to them. None.
Alex must be shaking his head in disgust that someone would actually buy the 3 strike. Buy the stock. He's screaming into his muted microphone.
But the guy did make $40,000 already.
Yeah, so he's the genius. All right.
So why would you ever buy something that deep?
I'm scratching my head for a reasonable, reasonable choice of the 3s, and not, at that point not going just to the stock or to doing something like Andrew said, a little bit closer to the at the money. So you still have some in the money deltas, but you're not overpaying a ton for needless directional exposure. That's getting you nothing at this point. Yeah,
I can't fathom up a reason to buy something that deep. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. And to my habitual point, I'm not sure I wouldn't own the stock here than manage that with options as opposed to buying it deep. But to Andrew's point, the guy's up already, so can't fault him.
Yeah, we're all second guessing his genius at this point. So let's move on before he writes into the show and says, "Look, I'm making so much money. How could I be wrong?" All right, next up, we have another name we talked about recently. This is MeetMe Inc., ticker symbol MEET. Closing today, $4.17, another really rich stock, up about 40 cents or about 10% on the day. This is the name that does about 400 contracts a day, doing 8,000 today. So another one lighting up the old tape. And to see what was going on out here, so we started off writing up on the site about the AUG5 calls. We saw a few hundred of them going up for about $1. Total of nearly 700 going up on the day, but AUG and pretty much all the months at this point were surprisingly active for this name. It was up 10%, so that should give you some clues what's going on. But we saw March 4 puts going up today 500 times. March 4-5 looks like could have been a March 4-5 strangle, a risk reversal. 500 of the 5 calls went up. 1,500 of the March 4s going up today. 1,000 of the May 5s. There was paper across the board. 700 of the AUG 4s. Almost 700 of the AUG 1s. So just weird paper across the board. What was your takeaway from all this weird paper out here in Meet today, Andrew?
Just somebody's getting long. The people are buying. And the volume crazy is there was about 7,500 calls and 500 puts. Most of the call buying was positive, as in they're buying options. So, we were looking at the August 1 buy right, even a couple of weeks last week, is basically parity now. So that person made that 30 cents pretty much instantly. I just picked these Augies because that was the biggest block. The biggest block was only 230 contracts today out of 8,000. So real small retail paper, maybe jumping into this as, I don't know, the next WhatsApp or whatever Facebook bought, because it's a kind of cheapy little social network thing. MeetMe, it sounds like kind of what happens on the corner of, Polk and Bush Street in San Francisco. So not quite sure what this company does, but the stock is up, 10% today, and it was just $3 a couple days ago.
Yeah, just not too long ago on the show, we were talking about that AUG1 buy right, and we were laughing about that and how crazy it was to be closing and rolling on the 1 strike, and now he's 3 handles to the good on that. So his buy right worked out all right. He's already maxed it out. He can set it and forget it, or he can roll and try it again. So there you go. Another guy that we mocked and is now proving his genius after the fact. All right, next up, we're moving on to a name we haven't talked about in a while, but it has made a few appearances on the old odd block. This is the Tech Spider, the XLK. Closing today, $36.36, roughly unchanged. Like the rest of the market, doing an average of about 14,000 contracts a day. But what they lit up the tape with was 80,737 of that 85,000 contracts coming in one mega call buy. We saw the March 37s going up, like we said, 80,000 times for about 7 cents. Looks like it's a buy. It looks like it was done with stock. I don't know the exact ratio on that to see how much stock they actually did on that. There is a ton of open interest here, 132,000 to be precise. So this could be closing that out, but it looks like it could have been really adding some more to that massive mountain of calls. Is that your take as well, Andrew? You think this is opening?
Yeah, I'm on the fence. Not quite sure. I'm going to look tomorrow because 37, it feels like kind of a long way away for a couple of weeks in this product. It's a pretty big jump, although I kind of like the Qs overall as sort of my closet pick for the year as a long. But it's definitely something I want to follow in case we get kind of a jump because most of these are technology stocks that make this thing up. They've been pulling back and sort of doing nothing. So if this Putin stuff kind of clears out, maybe this becomes a really nice trade. So, but again, this is one where I'll be looking for the open interest tomorrow on it.
All right, and moving on to another name. This is the newcomer to the odd block. This is Encana Corporation, ticker symbol ECA, closing today $20.50, up about 42 cents or so on the day. This is the name that does about 8,000 contracts a day, doing nearly 60,000 today. And if you're looking at some of the paper that's going up, we saw the March 18s going up, we saw the March 19s, saw the March 20s, we saw April 20s. Those are a little bit dubious. The April 19s. There, of course, we also saw some other ones going on. A lot of paper going up. Of course, there is a div lurking out here. You have a feel that there's a div trade on the horizon, Signor Giovinazzi?
A div trade, but also buy right. I mean, somebody sold like 20,000 or almost 30,000 of the OCK 23s. So yes, I mean the divvy 7 cents, but still, I think this is feeling like a divvy play. This doesn't look like a bad buy right, to be honest. It's kind of a low volatility petrochemical type name, but as a buy right, I don't think it looks too bad. But small divvy, but again, I think a huge overrider. And generally when people are buy writing that big, they're kind of in there for the long term. So I think it is a decent buy right, I would say.
Yeah, 600 contracts open on that strike. He's blasting out 30,000, so he's probably there for the long haul. You're right.
I would be guessing.
And it looks like a lot of other papers, the ephemeral paper, as we'll call it, is related to that divvy. People doing the 18s and any strike with any open interest at this point. I think the April 20s is a bit dubious. I'm hoping that's tied to something else. That's not a div play because that's a dangerous one. But interesting stuff nonetheless, and some size overriding you right here in ECA. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well. And that's about all the time we have for the Odd Block today. And now we're going to keep on rolling right on into Alex's favorite segment, the Express Block.
The Express Block, brought to you by Options Express. Options Express lets you trade where and when you want for every level of trading. From advanced charting, free daily trading ideas, and free educational resources, Options Express is the online broker for all traders. Best of all, Options Express allows you to trade stocks, options, and futures all in a single account on powerful yet easy-to-use trading platforms, including mobile devices. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio for your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
All right, listeners, you know what time it is. It's time to take our tour behind the scenes of Options Express by Charles Schwab. And our tour guide for today, and indeed for every day, is the Viceroy himself, good old Alex Jacobson. Alex, I hope you have your fancy hat ready, because it's time to go behind the velvet rope. You mentioned that it was still some of the old hats playing over there at OX, like Solar City and others, and of course, Plug lighting up the tape at OX today. Was that the lion's share of the trade today?
Yeah, and it was. I hate to use the term a quiet day, but both the futures desk and the equities desk came back and said the only thing that was really lighting up the tape was alt energy and some of our traditional names, the Pricelines, the Netflixes, the Teslas. Talking to some of the folks I talk to on a regular basis, everybody thinks that the Ukraine is just, it isn't over, and they're waiting for a vol spike. And I think that's driven people to the sidelines for a bit. But overall today, it was a quiet day. I mean, much as I hate to say that there wasn't a lot going on today, other than alt energy, there wasn't a lot going on today.
So the immediate wave of love and or terror out there in NAS gas that has ebbed a little bit at OX for the time being?
Yeah, Mike Zaremski, who runs our futures desk, said that this is the quietest day they've seen in the energy complex in a while. And again, think about the fact that it's 50 degrees in Chicago. Maybe that should have started some selling. But Mike said it was quiet, so not a lot of people rushing for the exits in nat gas just yet.
So it's the eye of the storm. We'll see which way it unfolds once the Ukraine stuff starts moving towards some sort of resolution. I'm sure that'll get those markets moving yet again. Speaking of moving, it's time for us to keep on moving with the show right on into the strategy block.
The strategy block.
All right, listeners, you know what that music means. It is time once again for Uncle Mike Tosaw to take off his regular garb, don the smoking jacket, grab the stone tablets and perhaps his pipe, and descend down from on high or whatever little molehill he can find in St. Charles to dispense options, wit, and or wisdom. Sometimes we get one, sometimes we get both. I'm hoping for a double header today. Uncle Mike Tosaw, what do you have in store for our listeners, sir?
Mr. Longo, let's play 2 today. I got my smoking jacket on, and it smells okay because I don't even smoke.
I like it. So we're in store for wit and wisdom today. I'm very excited.
I'm going to do my best. I made a point today just to inspire myself for this show to go on YouTube and watch the Battle of Wits scene from The Princess Bride, where they try to determine which cup to drink from. So now I think I'm in the right mindset for today. I want to go through alternatives to the covered call. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the fact that, not that I'm against the covered call by any means, but it can be challenging in a lower volatility environment. With the VIX that had a little bit of a pop today, I'm showing a high today of 1528, and it might be a temptation if a stock is doing okay or if vol goes up to sell a covered call on it. But we all run into this at some point in time. If you've ever traded a covered call before, as soon as the market goes up, you run into a great deal of frustration because of the fact that you think, oh my goodness, why did I sell that covered call? If I had just done nothing, then if I had just done nothing and just let the stock ride up higher, I'd be fine. But in reality, that's a good thing because you've made the most money that's possible for you to make. So first off, have that mentality if you are going to sell it. But what I want to go through is if you're concerned that the stock is going to run up too much and you just want to get some income in the near term, I want to give you the idea of what you can do to do something to collect some income in the near term. And this is what we've been doing lately, even in a lower volatility environment on the S&P. We've been selling put spreads. Now, granted, today what we talked about in the trading block where the market came down just for me to get into my put spread, I'm saying that facetious. I mean, I'm not saying that facetiously. It really did happen. But the reality of it is that there's times that the market doesn't always come down to give you exactly the fill that you want. So you have to be able to deal with the pain, so to speak, of getting in at different times. Here's my suggestion, folks, of something to possibly consider if you want to collect some income while still being long a stock. Let's say that you have a basket of stocks, and it's a dividend-paying basket of stocks. Maybe you have some various Dow stocks. Maybe you have Procter & Gamble, Verizon, Chevron, Intel, McDonald's. Maybe they pay a dividend. Maybe they don't even pay a dividend. But you're looking for some dividends in one way, shape, or form. Put some money aside and use that money to sell put spreads. And you can do it on either the individual stocks or on the Dow itself, or on DJ, or on DIA or DJX itself, or on SPY itself. And by doing that, yes, it does take extra work. And yes, you're taking on a different style of risk. But if you're concerned with the market going up too high, there's no sin in taking a little bit of extra money to the side and selling some spreads on it. Now, what do you have to be aware of? Of course, if the market goes down, the covered call trader loves the idea when the market goes down just a little bit and they can say, wow, I made all that money. The stock went down $1.50 and I made $2 on my covered call. Good gosh, I'm so smart. You don't quite get that joy in the put spread selling world. I guess you can if you're selling an out of the money put spread and it doesn't quite go too low. But the reality of it is that you're going to be giving that up to the downside. You have to be monitoring that put spread, whether you have a contingency order in place, whether you're looking to just stare at the screen all day, and if it goes down to a certain level, get out of it. Whatever the case may be, you have to have a different level of risk, and you have to have a different method of monitoring that risk. But if you're concerned with that, there's always an alternative. The beauty of options, folks, is if you don't like one thing, there's always one other thing that you can do. Now, unfortunately, if you're looking to have your cake and eat it too, you want to have income, you don't want limited upside, and you don't want to have any problem to the downside, and you won't want to take on any additional risk, well, then I would suggest maybe watching an infomercial and buying a straddle, maybe, because those always work. And that's one to grow on for today.
Or you can always buy the 3-strike, too. That seems to work out for everybody these days.
That's what it seems.
We're profiling a lot of deep stuff on the show these days. Not sure what that means, but thank you for that, Uncle Mike. Interesting and informative as always. And now we shall roll on into our final segment, Around the Block.
Around the Block.
I could just listen to those car horns all day, the gentle sounds of traffic reminding me of the traffic right outside our door here on Wacker Drive. Such a happy memory. But it's time to roll on into our final segment, Around the Block, as Mike and Andrew and Alex have alluded to multiple times throughout the show. Everyone's still kind of playing the old wait and see with the Ukraine and what's going on out there. Obviously, with macro events, there's not a heck of a lot you can do from a fundamental perspective or any other perspective. It's all in the hands of the politicians. You know, we've said on this many times on this program in the past about our cynicism about the outcome of those types of events. Not much going on the earnings front. Vol also kind of in a bit of a holding pattern. It can't really come off too much because we don't know when the next shoe is going to drop out there, but it also is not really going to do another spike above the 16 into the close to the 17 handle again because there hasn't been yet another bit of news out there. So everyone's kind of in a bit of a holding pattern right now in terms of what's really to come, and in terms of what's going on to our next show. I'd imagine Ukraine is really topping the list. Of course, if you're looking at individual names, what's going on out there in the Plug and Solar City arenas is also interesting to note, on top of the ever-present Tesla, always making some news. Mr. Andrew, what is really top of mind for you, at least until we get back together here on this program on Thursday?
You know, it's funny just talking about Mike and selling put spreads, you know, kind of operating out away from the money at this point. You know, I don't think the market's going to crash. As much as the skew says no, I think there's a lot of worry out there about the Ukraine. I think people are just buying protection as a reason to stay long, which is different than just buying puts because we think we're going down. And, you know, and hopefully we see some more interest in stocks like these plugs. And then just these smaller names or these sectors that nobody really cares about this year. I mean, I think we might start seeing some, you know, some cash flow to some of these other places at this point. So, hey, solar and alternative energy. It was looking good. And what? When did the president get elected? Like 2008 or 2009? There was a little bubble in that, and 2009, and they all died again. So never know. Maybe they figured it out 4 or 5 years later. Companies can make some money. So
Interesting. You mentioned the people buying the puts to stay long, because that seems to be what we've been seeing across the board. In fact, we had a guest recently on Vol Views who discussed that exact topic. Again, listeners, if you haven't checked it out, the Revitalized, Reborn Volatility Views, check out that program. There's good stuff on there. And the guest was going on about how in these environments, when you see the tail risk start to pick up, people bidding up these puts, that typically could be seen as people, building up concern. It might be leading to some sort of near-term correction in the market. And yet, when you look at the data, when you look at the actual analysis of that data, the market performs better than ever in those environments. And, kind of one of the only conclusions you can really leap to in that is that people are doing exactly that. They're paying up. They're chasing the offers to get this protection on. And once they do, they're kind of content. They've got their protection. They've locked in their level, and they want the market to rally a little bit, and they're kind of content with that. And so it does.
That is called back spreading.
Yes. Funny how that works.
Oh my God! Wait a minute. Who does that?
But to see that playing out in a macro sense, and the fact that it actually does work out, because so many people out there, looking at tail risk and the premium in these puts as a very contrarian type indicator, and yet that hasn't really played out in the marketplace. When you start seeing those people chasing those bids, or start seeing people chasing those offers, load up. Go long. That's when the market rallies the hardest. Interesting stuff. Check out that full. I'm, of course, paraphrasing. There's a lot more detail in it. But check out Vol Views if you haven't had a chance, listeners, particularly that episode. I believe that was Chris Cole. Interesting stuff. Speaking of interesting stuff, Mr. Jacobson, what are you watching for the rest of this week, sir? At least until next time we gather here on the old Option Block program.
Watching world events, watching the price of Boeing stock, which is a big part of what took the Dow lower today. Anxious to see how this news develops on this Malaysian airliner, and I want to frame this right. I just hope it's a legitimate accident. It's starting to get a little freaky, and given what's going on in the world, this is it. This is where the conspiracy theorists come out. Not a lot going on in the market in terms of earnings. And the energy complex and the volatility complex were relatively quiet, but, we're keeping our eyes on the Ukraine, and Putin's going to do something. I mean, he ain't done. He's not walking away from this, in my view. So there's another chapter to be written there, and the market will respond to it.
Yeah, the stuff going on there with the Malaysian Airlines really just, that's tinfoil hat area now at this point. When a plane vanishes off the radar, that gets into some wacky territory pretty quickly. You're right, and Boeing, of course, they're HQ'd here in downtown Chicago. They're our neighbors right across the street. I eat lunch in the Boeing cafeteria quite regularly. Very tasty stuff, by the way. I do recommend it. Certainly seem to be a different atmosphere in there of late, so if that's any indicator, of course, the stock selling off about 1.5% today. Getting a nice little pump in the vol, as you might expect when something like this is going on. They averaging about 30,000 contracts a day, doing about 2x that today, doing about 60,000 contracts. Senior Andrew, you getting some juice out there in Boeing?
I'm looking at it for tomorrow. I mean, like I said, I was gone all day, but I don't think the vol has barely moved in here. I hate to be so, it's up 2 points, but relative to where volatility can go, when they have kind of an issue with that, they remember last year they had that issue with the plane volatility, can jump a little more than this. Stock can, make a pretty good size move. So I'm looking to see if there's anything decent, probably like a type of ratio spread, either call or put spread, depending on which way I would lean. If this is all kind of a bunch of, just an unfortunate accident. So, but, vol's up basically 1.5 points, which is not very much considering, whatever the next rumor will probably be. Could send the stock up or down $5. So,
yeah, a lot of the activity out there focused on the calls today too, which is interesting. Over 1.3 to 1 calls to puts today, which is interesting.
Scoop in the bottom.
Yeah, I guess there are still net negative short deltas about 270,000, but that isn't a ton, given the predominance of negative sentiment on this name. So it could be people poising for a bit of a retracement here. hard to talk about this stuff when there's obviously a human cost factored in as well, but still, from a purely theoretical and fundamental perspective, it is interesting nonetheless. Uncle Mike, take us home, sir. What are you watching for the rest of this week?
Well, yeah, like just to kind of add to what, or just to kind of just second what Andrew and Alex said, definitely the world events in terms of the disappearing plane, along with what's going on in Crimea and just everything that's going on. The thing that's really kind of catching my eye about this is that with all those things going on right now, it kind of concerns me that the market didn't go down more today, meaning that I would have expected a greater pullback in the marketplace with that type of news out there, with a missing plane, with uncertainty. Maybe it's already factored in, or maybe this could be a potential buying opportunity. Who knows? But definitely, first and foremost, prayers definitely go out to people out in Asia, as well as anyone on that plane.
All right, and that is going to do it for this episode of the Option Block. And as always, before we sign off, let me check in with each of my cohorts, my partners in crime, to see what they have cooking in their respective necks of the woods that may interest you, the listeners. And I think I'll start with our newly minted holder of a Series 65, Mr. Giovanazzi. What is cooking in the land of the pit?
We are going to be launching our new gold course within probably 3 weeks. Hopefully this month. We're a little behind. It will be pretty cool for all those you want to learn really good stuff about options. It will be basically more like a video library of short vignettes, about 4 to 5 minutes long. There's probably about 180 of them, somewhere along that line. So trading iron condors, adjusting, if you want to learn about trading Vega, looking at vol skew, vol differential, pretty much the stuff we talk about in our gold course that we did on live. Mark and I recorded the webinars, and it's a good opportunity. Plus, we'll do live. We still do 2 live sessions for the course, so you have essentially the video content, and then we do 2 live sessions. We do a lab and basically a study hall on the information. There's homework, education, trade selection, all kinds of stuff to help people basically just understand how options work on, I would say, a fairly granular level. So if you're interested, you surf on over to optionpit.com, call us at 888-TRADE-01, ask for the lovely Joanne, and she will be happy to sign you up for our new gold course, which will just come our regular gold course going forward.
And what if I ask for the lovely Andrew? Will they laugh and hang up?
Well,
there's none of that here.
Probably just get me. So lovely, of course, is in the eye behind. My kids think I am. I don't know if lovely is the right word.
Probably not. They might object to that characterization, I would think, if they listen to the show. They just think
I'm a tree to climb.
And an endless supply of money, of course.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Speaking of endless supplies of money, Mr. Tosaw, what is cooking on the land of the RCM webinar train? When are we getting that Great Stupids webinar?
Not tonight, unfortunately, but we are having a webinar on strike price selection this Thursday night. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss. We haven't done it in a while. So for more information on that, go to www.rcmwealthadvisors.com/webinars.
All right. And Mr. Jacobson, take us home.
Idea Hub for Schwab Mobile should come out of the test environment and be available in the next 7 or 8 business days. So please look for that. It will be mobile first. Wednesday, March 12th, webinar, Nina will be talking about options terminology. Thursday the 13th, a platform and site tour and an intro into the new streaming charts. And then I'm going to showcase one a little bit forward. Next Tuesday, March 18th, Peter Lusk from the Options Institute at the SIBO is going to come over and talk about why volatility should be a part of any stock or option forecast. So all the events are free. Just come to the site, optionsexpress.com, register for an event.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Viceroy. And of course, on behalf of the entire panel here, that includes Uncle Mike and the Rock Lobster and the Viceroy and of course myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience Thanks again for downloading and streaming and subscribing to the show. Of course, keep those questions coming. We'll get to them on our next episode. And of course, we'll see you next time right here on the Option Block.
Become a part of the Option Block. Just visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/forum to post a question for the hosts. You can also submit questions to twitter.com/optionblock or leave a voicemail at 312-544-9356. Make it interesting and your question just might make it on the air. The Options Block is property of the Options Insider Incorporated. All rights reserved.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.